my preparation for the new year. It's commonly used as what we call an inflection point. An inflection point is a moment in time where we leverage an event, something happening, a moment in time to create change, to help us steer ourselves in a new direction, or reinforce the direction that we're wanting to go in, and making new intentions, or reaffirming or reinforcing old intentions, and kind of getting them back online, back on track, so to speak. And one thing that I do is some creative and focused visualization. Ultimately, this is the kind of Napoleon Hill, what man can conceive and believe he can achieve. So what we envision very vividly, we plant seeds in our deep psychology, which we can then nurture and water to grow. So last night, I spent several hours picturing what 2023 not only looks like, but what it feels like. So I picture myself at the end of 2023 looking back on it, going, wow, what an amazing and transformational and productive year. I feel the joy and the excitement and in some cases the pride, reflecting on what I've achieved. And this sparks a few interesting mechanisms in the subconscious mind. Basically, the mind doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. So when you imagine something with that visceral, emotional passion and content, then your mind goes, oh, how did we do that then? And the subconscious mind, which is an incredibly powerful tool, and that power can be used either in a destructive or constructive manner. The most ideal is obviously using it in a constructive manner. Kind of just to give you an idea of the power of the subconscious mind. If you were to deal with a complex task, let's say you had a complex problem that you needed to solve, and you've got two parts of the mind, the conscious and the subconscious. Now, the conscious part of your mind, the bit that I'm talking to right now, the bit that's processing my language, that's present with me on this call, it can process information at a certain rate, just like a computer, just like your iPhone. If you want to do a certain task, if you're doing video editing and you click render, it might take 5 minutes to render the video because there's a lot of computation it needs to do. So your brain is just the same. It has a certain amount of bandwidth of computation that it can process at any moment in time. And we can measure it, and we have done. And the conscious mind can process information at about 40 bits per second, which is not a great deal. It really isn't. And they do this by, getting people to multitask. Do this, do that, think of that, read this, and at some point you just cannot complete all the tasks at once. This is why monotasking is a lot better than multitasking. Now, the subconscious mind, it can process information at around about 40 million bits per second. 40 million. So it's 1 million times faster than your conscious mind. Which basically means that if you were to, say, deal with this complex task, if you compare the conscious mind to the subconscious mind, so the analogy that I like to give is if you used your conscious mind, the 40 bits per second, and you treated it as a full-time job to resolve and solve this complex task. And let's say, it'd take a long time. So let's say you did it as a full-time job, so 8 hours, but you got dinner and you got your breaks and things like that. So let's say you put in 6 hours work in a day. Let's say you're doing that 48 weeks in a year. You got 4 weeks holiday. And let's say you treat that as a 40-year career. So if you instructed your conscious mind to process that for that length of time, 6 hours a day of solid work, 48 weeks a year, 40 years career, your subconscious mind can do the same amount of processing in 20 seconds. That gives you kind of a small perspective, a little glimpse of the immense power of the subconscious mind. It's comparable in many ways to Google. You put in Google a search request, and within, 0.01 of a second, it's come back with 1 million answers. But just like Google, it doesn't rationalize what you're asking. So if you say to Google, I don't want stress, it'll give you 333 million pages on stress. It doesn't see the I don't want. It goes, oh, you don't want stress, right, so here are ways to have joy. No, it works on keywords. And that's what the subconscious mind does as well. It works on keywords. And this is the reason why language and how we frame things is so important. This is, in essence, the premise, the fundamental structure behind magic. Abracadabra. I create what I speak. You speak into existence your reality. Why? Because your subconscious mind basically searches for evidence of exactly what you speak. So if you're got a narrative in your brain going, oh, I'm always late, I'm always stressed, oh, I never get things done on time, right? Oh, I can't do this, I'm no good, I never find a partner, I'm always having arguments. Well, your subconscious mind goes, okay. It doesn't rationalize it. It doesn't say, well, you don't want arguments and you do want to get things done on time. What it will do is it will orchestrate and create a set of scenarios which prove you right. That's what it does. It's just a very simple mechanism. It's not rational. It doesn't try and work it out for you. It's the proverbial genie. Your wish is my command. So be careful what we wish for. And ultimately, self-actualization is, and mindfulness, true Buddhism mindfulness is the ability to observe our thoughts in real time and make adjustments in real time. To be able to notice those destructive thoughts in the moment they arise and have no emotional attachment to them and let them go and create the feeling and the emotion and the narrative and the new text which countermands it, that overrides it, that creates actually the story, the narrative, the intention that it is that you really want. Not what your mind is basically defaulting to. Because the subconscious is, in essence, just a default setting. It is a program running in the background which has been installed at some point in the past. And it's only by becoming aware of these, in essence, being self-aware, that we can actually do anything to change it. The first step of healing is admission, is recognizing that we have something to heal. Denial is the enemy of progression. So this, in essence, is the whole point and benefit of the muscle testing. Because we tell ourselves stories all the time, and often we subscribe to them, we believe in them, we accept them, we embody them. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're correct and they are serving us. It might be just a narrative and a story that you have accepted as your truth. And what you can do is use the muscle testing to assess whether it's serving you, to assess whether it is actually your truth, whether it's for your highest good, especially when, we can be stubborn at times. And ego steps in, and there's somebody else that's giving us feedback. And maybe that somebody else isn't somebody that we want to receive feedback from. So if we don't want to receive feedback from somebody, maybe we don't like them, maybe they've pissed us off, maybe they've annoyed us, maybe they've upset us, maybe they're, our children and they're younger than us, and our ego is like, what do they know over me? Maybe it's a friend who you think's a know-it-all and you don't want to listen to them. But in reality, what they're doing is speaking the truth. Remember, the universe is giving us feedback all the time. Now, the feedback isn't always valid. Sometimes people do project on us. And what it is a reflection of them instead of a reflection of you. But if your ego is involved in it as well, your default setting will be, it's a projection. Oh no, you're talking bullshit. And I've been personally through so many of these scenarios where I've had somebody attempting to give me feedback. And because of what I do and everything like that, it's like, come on, you can't tell me about me. And I hear this story and narrative and this script playing in the background, which is not me. It's just a default setting. Don't take ownership of it. And I observe it and go, okay, interesting. It really is resisting this. So let me test it. Let me see if actually which one's true. Are they speaking the truth? Or is my little voice in my mind speaking the truth for me? Or is it ego? Is it denial? So it's very, very important to get this internal script right and to be mindful of any of the dysfunctional programs that are limiting or opposing what it is that you ultimately want. So by doing creative visualization and observing yourself through the process, and being sensitive to any resistances that you have in your system, you can preempt and predict any potential self-sabotage you might have in this coming new year. If you have got a particular goal, whether that's relationships, whether that's business, whether that's, material, whatever it might be, if you attempt to picture yourself in that situation, in receiving it and having it, and it's all muddy and you can't, or some self-worth issues come out, or you feel it's impossible, then guess what? That is the message that you need to hear. That's the bit you need to explore. That's the bit that needs work doing on, because if you just ignore it, well, it's going to raise its ugly head at some point in the future. And then you'll look back in hindsight and go, oh, I knew that. And if at any point in time you're looking back in hindsight and realizing that you knew the answer, your intuition was correct, but you didn't follow it, then the long and short of it is you are observing yourself in hindsight being unconscious and self-sabotaging. But sometimes our intuition, what feels like intuition, what seems like intuition, what senses like intuition, is your ego steering you off track. And that's why, when we kind of follow our intuition and then it goes wrong, we start then doubting and not trusting our intuition. And this is again where the testing comes into play. Because the testing ultimately is just an exercise of mindfulness. It's an exercise of turning your observation inside, being fully present with your body, with your stillness, with how you feel, with the language that's going on in your mind, and sensing into your body's somatic knowing. And instead of doing it in a lackadaisical, haphazard way, you're doing it in a methodical and constructed way. Okay, I will test this, and then I will see what happens in reality. Now, if the reality doesn't match the testing, then there is a potential that I had some biases and some emotions and some things that have influenced my testing. So I can then backwards engineer that and look at it in hindsight and go through the process again, being more self-aware. Because at the end of the day, if how you've processed up until now hasn't delivered the results that you want, then quite simply, you have to adopt a different way of doing things. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Like they say, like the lottery, you've got to be in it to win it. Yeah, in other words, you've got to buy the ticket. Buying the ticket in life is becoming involved with it, becoming present with it, becoming mindful with it, becoming introspective with it, being proactive with it instead of passive. Don't get me wrong, flow state is wonderful. But you only achieve a flow state when you are truly and deeply connected with your intuition, your intuitive part, that muscle which you trust and you know, and everything works out perfectly. And that comes with confidence. But the confidence only comes from practice. That's why meditation and yoga and all this kind of stuff is called a practice. We're always practicing, we're always learning, we're always growing. We have to be relentless with this if we're ever going to keep upgrading our lives, upgrading ourselves, getting to a point of neutrality and non-reaction, getting to a place where no matter what's happening in your life, everything is perfect and wonderful. And you have deep gratitude for every experience. And that's regardless of what that experience looks like. Whether you think you are losing something or gaining something. One significant part of raising your frequency and raising your vibration is things that you attracted in that old vibration no longer serve you, they no longer match you, and they have to leave. And the way we lower our vibration is with anxiety about them leaving. The fear of missing out. The fear of not getting something to replace it. This is the old, you've got to give up the good to get the great. And you've got to give up the great to get the amazing. But you've got to give up the amazing to get the fucking spectacular. Most people desperately grasp onto the good. Never even get the great. Because they're looking backwards. Based in fear. Based in loss. Based in anxiety. Unable to let go. Because they cannot see a future that's better. So this is going back to something you should do on a regular basis, never mind these times of year where it's the new year and people set new intentions. I'm sure everybody here has been into angel numbers at some point in time and seen 1111 and 555 and all this kind of stuff. One of my favourite ones is when I see 0000, in other words, midnight. I've got a few friends where I'll screenshot that and I'll send it to them and go, Happy New Day. Just like Happy New Year, Happy New Day. We don't have to wait 365 days to have an inflection point where we celebrate a new beginning. Every time you open your eyes in a morning is a new beginning. It's a rebirth. It's a new opportunity to live life differently, to make different choices, to take different actions. You know, every morning's that red pill, blue pill moment. One, you can go about your day doing the normal same old shit that you've always done with the same attitude, the same beliefs, and get the same results. Or you could decide to do things differently, make different choices, take massive action, take risks that you wouldn't normally do. You know, Einstein said, somebody who's never made a mistake has never tried anything new. And the problem is the biggest restriction in progress is the fear of getting something wrong, making a mistake, maybe embarrassing ourselves. So we play it safe and we don't do anything, because then we can't be disappointed. But when we engender the premise, the belief, the way of being that there are no mistakes, only learning opportunities, only opportunities for growth and expansion, then you realize that everything's a lesson. Everything's a benefit. You cannot get anything wrong. You know, the difference between a master and the apprentice, as the master has failed more times than the apprentice has ever attempted. Because failure, in the sense of it, is just experience. You know, as Edison said when he was challenged, when he was told, oh, you've done these thousands of experiments and you've failed thousands of times to invent the light bulb. They went, no, I haven't. He says, I have successfully eliminated thousands of ways that it won't work, leading me closer to the answer. And this is why I've said before, treat life as one just big experiment. You know, if you're doing a scientific experiment, what you do is you conduct an experiment and you see what happens with the result. Whatever happens with the result is a result. It's not a success, it's not a failure, it's just a result. And that result, you can then take the feedback, you can make an adjustment, and you can move forward. And you get another result, and then another result. You know, this is the old analogy about the old sniper. They'll do a sighting round. If they're shooting a long distance, they will fire a bullet, see where it lands, and then they know, with the wind and how much the bullet is being perturbed by the environment, and they can look at the difference in their scope and then readjust and take the next shot and be on the bullseye. But without that first shot, it's, you know, professional guesswork. And that's why you've got to shoot your shot in life. Yes, doing some professional guesswork before you shoot your shot is, you know, a worthwhile task. You know, in business, this is a business plan. Yeah, you put your deck together. What is your strategy? How are you going to achieve the goal? What are the steps you need to take? But I tell you something. There is not one business that has ever built a deck and then executed it word for word verbatim without any deviation. Why? Because shit comes up that you just cannot predict. That's life. Life is full of curveballs. And visualization can do that. I mean, I've been doing this for decades. I remember doing this when I was a teenager in my young 20s. And I would go out on sales calls. On the way to the sales call, when I'm driving in my car, got the guy's name in front of me, what I would do, you know, or if it was in business and, you know, I've got a meeting the next day, that evening, I would basically lie there and visualize the meeting. And I would have the meeting with that person. And I would picture of what I said and how I would say it and how it would go. And if his responses weren't quite how I wanted them to be, I would then rehearse the meeting in a different way. And I'd keep doing it until I got the response from the person that I was looking for. And I tell you something, it works. When I was driving out to the appointments, I'd be talking, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, thank you. So happy that we're getting on really well. I'm grateful that you really like me and trust me and you appreciate me, and we're really connecting, and you're interested in what I'm selling and you're ready to buy, and you think it's a great service that we provide. That's creative visualization. That's planting seeds in the universe. And seriously, I've been playing with this, as I say, for a long time. Some of the results I have had are just mind blowing. I remember one where I was going to this networking event, and it was at this big football club in England, and there was two people I wanted to meet. One was the football club manager, who owned a large LED lighting manufacturing company. And at the time, LED lighting for commercial businesses was very lucrative, because going from their fluorescent kind of lights into LED lights, it saved them enough electricity to pay the capital investment back within 2 to 3 years, which is just crazy. A lot of businesses, if they get the capital back in 8 years, it's a good investment. This was 2 to 3 years capital back, and then the LED lights would last for years more. So it was a significant operational cost saving, a monthly saving, in electricity. So it would boost cash flow. It was a no-brainer. And I had my renewable energy company. We did solar and everything like that, and we were going into companies and installing solar panels. It was a natural progression just to go, well, okay, let's, we're producing electricity, let's cut it. So I wanted to, create a good relationship with him. And then there was also the director of the Chamber of Commerce, a very influential man, obviously somebody that knew pretty much all the businesses, in the area, and knew a lot of big businesses which had big roofs where we could put a lot of solar on. And I knew they knew each other because they were the ones that were running the networking meeting. So before I left for the networking meeting, I stood in front of the mirror. This is a mirror technique. You can use it. It's a powerful technique. I stood in front of the mirror, looked me straight in the eyes, and I had a conversation as if the person in the mirror was the director of the Chamber of Commerce. And I had a full conversation with him. And I was kind of putting words in his mouth. And one of them were that he felt that this was kind of some, synchronistic, spooky event, like it was meant to be, like it was a divine, happening, that we were meant to have this conversation and he was meant to get involved and help me. And I had all this conversation in the mirror, and then I drove to the event, got to the event. I'd visualized him coming up to me and everything like that, and I walked in the room, and I stood in the room, and the first person that came to me was the director of the Chamber of Commerce. The first person walked up to me. He was like, hello, how are you doing? My name's... And I was like, oh, I know who you are. And then I told him it was basically a community interest company called Energizing the Youth that I wanted to develop. And I told him about it. And his exact words was, look, I don't know why I'm saying this, because I never say anything like this, but it feels really spooky that you're saying this, like we were meant to have this conversation. Almost verbatim what I'd said. And he was even recognizing that he doesn't normally say stuff like this. And he's like, look, there's one guy you really need to meet. Just a minute. And he shouts over, and he brings the director of the football club over and introduces me. The second person. So this is the power of creative visualization and actually rehearsing the result that you want. You plant the seed in the universe. This is Manifestation Work 101. And I've leveraged this to do all sorts. Romantic relationships, business, friends, all sorts. And it's incredibly powerful. And it's the same with your health as well. We talked about it in our previous sessions where you'd done, visualizations or affirmations with Louise Hay and things like that, and he healed your thyroid and all of this kind of stuff. What the mind imagines, the body doesn't know the difference between. If you're imagining it being healthy, then it will create an environment for health. If you imagine it is sick, it's going to create an environment for sickness. This is the nocebo and the placebo effect. The nocebo effect is what makes you ill, and the placebo effect is what makes you better. So, after that little download, stepping into this new year, through this transitional period, this annual inflection point that we get the opportunity to take stock, look at our lives, how far we've come, where we want to go, what we've achieved, what we would like to achieve. How can I be of service right now? What is it that would be useful for you to get from this session today?
Hi. I would say from this, with the question and what you were saying, I know it's helpful to test and do affirmations and that kind of thing. And I know I missed a class, but I think that, what's her name? I can't recall her name right now. So kind of a little tired, but nevertheless, I was thinking that I do like the affirmation for confidence, but is there one? Can you do like a 2.0 version of the confidence? That would help, or something to that effect.
So when you say confidence, in any specific areas, Ramel? Is there any specific areas?
I was just talking.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't have you on. And trusting yourself.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you, how often do you do the testing?
I don't do it as much as I should. Maybe a couple of times a day, every 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm. The reason I ask is there's two ways of engendering trust in ourselves. One is, as you say, with the affirmations and visualizations and everything like that. But the other is going through the process, breaking it down, observing, and that's what the testing's in essence for. Because the more you test and the more you self-reflect, and that's, just even simple things like you've been invited out to a coffee morning. Am I going to enjoy it? What's the score of 1 to 10 of how much I'm going to enjoy it? Yeah? You're going anyway. You probably don't need to test. But that's not the point. The point is doing the test to get feedback. It's just like doing a sport. If you were going to play tennis, no matter how much you watch tennis and no matter how much you visualize tennis and no matter how much you tell yourself you're good at tennis, until you pick up a racket and try and hit the ball, you're not going to learn the skill of tennis. Because, it's not just about how you swing it, it's about the strength of your wrist. So actually doing it strengthens your wrist. It uses muscles that you wouldn't normally use unless you actually physically play. And that's the same with life. These are emotional and mental muscles. What we need to do is use these emotional and mental muscles in a very focused and specific way. So if you...
May I interject?
Yeah, please.
So I did the testing specifically on Sunday because I'm with my mom and I'm still here. I'm kind of stranded in another state. But nevertheless, So she wanted me to go to church with her. I am not a church person, okay? And, with the things that I've learned over time and up until now, I felt as though, it's not like it's like the place is going to burn down or fell again or anything like that. So I tested, and then I found myself kind of not knowing how to ask the question based on the language. As far as I was saying, I didn't say would I enjoy it. I was saying, would it be good for me to go, or is this going to be a good, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like qualifying it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
In a way that was like maybe not clear. So I think more so, maybe even clarify trust in myself is like the language more so.
It is.
Like understanding that, because I did go and I was fine, and I promise you what was so funny was I had my headphones, my AirPods in, and I was listening to one of your classes while the service was going on, but they were so loud, it just wasn't. You know what I mean? It was like white noise, which is good for me because I really didn't want to hear. But then when I did walk in, and one of the friends was like, "Oh, I didn't think you were going to show." I was like, "Yes, it's a Christmas miracle." So anyway, nevertheless, yeah, I think that kind of may be what it is, like figuring out the better words, and maybe I really need to write them down, because I find myself putting a value on things more than not.
Yeah, and this just again comes with practice. Just kind of going on that scenario, just to kind of give you a bit of insight as to how I might have tested around it. The one thing that we sometimes do with the testing is it's very selfish. What benefit am I going to get from this? The other perspective is, what benefit would other people get from you attending? Sometimes it's not all about us. For example, if I, was looking at going to an event and it was a networking event, and I was thinking, right, well, okay, if I'm going there, my intention is maybe to get a client. So I will test on a score of 1 to 10, what's the likelihood of, me getting a client? And then, or is there any financial benefit? Is there any emotional benefit? And blah, 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 blah. And then sometimes I will test, well, am I going to benefit somebody by going there and receive no benefit at all myself? And sometimes it tests yes. And because I'm going to benefit somebody but get no benefit myself, I'll still go. Because my dharma, my mission in life, is to be of service. And I just treat that as my tithing. Yeah, tithing doesn't have to be giving money to a charity. It could be giving your time to charity. And that charity might just be randomly meeting, there's nothing random, somebody, and me planting a seed in their psychology and subconscious, which transforms their lives. And that I will never know whether it bear fruit. There's an old saying that says, the world would be a better place if it had more men that planted trees that would never, enjoy its shade. In essence, that means that people are doing a selfless act. They're doing things for future generations that they're never, ever going to see the benefit of. There's no ego, there's no me, there's no I. It's a totally selfless act. So sometimes maybe going to do something like going to church with your family wasn't about you. It was about what your family would get from it. Just your presence might have filled them with some kind of joy which was meaningful to them at this time of year. And that's the benefit. And there's no benefit or reward for you to reap.
I get that.
So these are kind of, again, things to put into that kind of frameworks and that feeling and philosophy, and In many ways, the essence of tithing, of giving without needing to receive, and I find this a little ironic and paradoxical, but the essence of it is that what you're saying to the universe is, I have enough. I have more than enough for my every want and need. So I can give my time and my money away. But the law of attraction says, well, if you believe you've got more than enough, then we shall give you more. Because that's the essence of it. Now, I do kind of wonder if we do it like cupboard love, right? I don't know if you've heard that phrase. Cupboard love is where it's what we would, in modern day terms, call a gold digger. Somebody who isn't after you, they're after what you can provide. So in the context of this is sometimes this is the prostitute archetype. The prostitute archetype is one of the essences that come up is where you sell yourself, in essence. And that might be when in times of trouble. You're stuck in a really shitty situation. You're like, oh, please, God, help me out. If you do, I will give to charity and I will do good and I'll do this. And in essence, what you're doing is selling yourself to get out of the situation, which is the prostitute archetype. And if you're tithing and you're giving on the premise that you're stimulating the universe in the reciprocity to give back, then in essence you're kind of cancelling it out, in my understanding. So it's got to be done from a place of complete unconditional, look, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. Because other people are going to receive joy, receive some benefit. Even if it disadvantages me in some way, shape or form, that's my investment to just be a good person. And I'll just trust the universe that, if it does wish to pay me back, it's going to do so in sometimes ways I might never know. But that's irrelevant. I'm not doing this as a transaction. I'm doing this as a gift. So in that particular scenario, when it's your family inviting you, and especially it's not your usual MO to do, and it's kind of interesting and complimentary in some ways that you leveraged it as an opportunity to listen to some of the recordings. It's just sometimes your presence for somebody is the gift that you can give. And if I can just pick you up on the language that you used. No, about being abandoned. It wasn't abandoned, it was stranded, wasn't it? Stranded. I am stranded.
Oh, no, I'm stranded right now because I couldn't make my flight.
Right, so that's what I wanted to pick up on, right? Okay. Stranded is a victim. Kind of. That's not gratitude to the universe and recognizing that everything happens for a reason and the universe has blessed you with being there longer for a reason.
Yeah. So you do, how does that fall in line with the trusting yourself or using more, I don't know even to say better words. How can you help me with this?
Yeah. So,
it's the language, definitely.
Right. I'll give you an example. When I was in my nomadic journey, I was traveling around the world. I got my first $250,000 client. I was helping him with the testing to help with many of his businesses, and I did a lot of amazing and transformative things for him. I remodeled his life comprehensively, and he was a multi-millionaire. He'd got to that analysis paralysis kind of point. He just been in business so long, making decisions for so long, he just got tired of making decisions. So he was leveraging the testing to make decisions for him. We worked for about 7 months together. Now, the challenge was he had actually a lot of dysfunctional triggers around money. We talk about money blocks, and yes, millionaires have money blocks. It was actually some money blocks that I helped Rain with, which helped her accelerate her businesses to where she is now. And this is why she sings my praises so often. He had 20 million in liquid, assets, 10 million in cash and 10 million in Bitcoin. But in some ways he felt like he had no money. In some ways he felt he had succeeded, but there was lots of conflict there. And how that kind of arose is that when he was employing people, he would pay them the absolute minimum for them to work. But it caused lots of dysfunction because they were anxious and stressed because they only barely just had enough money to survive. And they were in survival mode, which is not necessarily productive. There's actually a balance to reach. And this was something that I was helping him work on. So anyway, the long and short of it is that I was in Prague with him, and I was really pushing and challenging him with a couple of these things, which I saw was going to lead him down, a very destructive path. And he was just resisting and resisting. We ended up having a bit of a blowout, and basically he ended the relationship. That was fine. And I got on a plane, and I had one of the most prolific spiritual awakenings on the plane. It was actually the first time I hit 630 on the Hawking scale, the scale of consciousness. 630 something it was, it felt like I'd taken, I don't know, a prolific amount of drugs. And when I landed in Amsterdam, I was at this meeting, and what they asked is, they says, can everybody share something that's happened to them this week that's may give them a wow moment? And one of the guys there was like, I've got a friend of mine who's developed this technology over many, many years, and just by a voice sample, he can tell you your psychology and biology and everything like that. And I'd been traveling around the world at that point looking for tools to use to make a virtual psychologist, to make a virtual subconscious surgeon in essence. And I was like, wow, this sounds amazing. What I did is I got the details and I emailed this scientist, and I was supposed to be going to a gathering in Italy in this castle called the Castle Gathering. And it was loads of spiritual entrepreneurs and crypto millionaires and everything like that. Amazing opportunity for networking. And I was like, right, okay, it's 4 days until there. I'm in Amsterdam. I'm going to go hire a car and I'm going to drive there. I thought I'd do a little road trip. So I booked a car, went to the airport to pick the car up. Couldn't find my driver's license. I had it the day before. I searched through all my luggage. I was at the desk for the car place, and I had my luggage all over the place. Couldn't find my driver's license. And they were like, well, I'm sorry, I can't hire your car. I was like, oh, fuck it. Okay, right. I'm going to book a flight then. Sod it, I'll just book a flight. I'm at the airport. What's the next flight? To Italy. Right? Went on the app, found the next flight, went to book it. My app crashed. It's like, bloody hell. Right. So went to did it again, went to do it, book it. The app crashed. And I was like, oh, sorry, I'll use a different app. So I went to a different app, found the same flight, went to book it. The payment didn't go through. And then I was like, and I stopped for a moment. I was like, okay, universe, you don't want me to leave, right? There's obviously a reason you don't want me to leave. Why don't you want me to leave? And I just heard this voice says, check your emails. So I went to check my emails, and the scientist had responded, and he said, oh, I'm available now. I live in Nijmegen. If you want to, it's 2 hours from Amsterdam. If you just jump on this train, we'll meet you at the train station and pick you up. You can come and stay with me. Now, if I'd have had my license, I'd have been in a car driving to Italy. If I'd have booked that flight, I'd have been paid for a flight, I'd have been waiting for the flight and flying to Italy. As it was, the universe didn't want me to do that. That wasn't the direction I should be going. And that was pivotal. I ended up staying with that scientist 2 weeks and basically becoming his distributor. And now this is what I'm using to create this technology and all sorts of stuff, right? Which I've been developing for quite some time now. I'm about to launch in the new year. So I wasn't, stranded in Amsterdam. The universe specifically kept me there because I had a purpose. So the trusting part is letting go of control. There are higher forces at work. And when we accept that and go, okay, universe, I'm listening to the feedback, I'm accepting the feedback, I'm not resisting the feedback. Yes, I have a desire to go to Italy, or you've got a desire to go home, but the universe is conspiring against this happening. So therefore, maybe if I'm fully present and I'm grateful for being here and being kept here, not stranded here, but being kept here intentionally, because there is a benefit to me being here that I haven't quite realized or understood yet. And then just step back into gratitude. Okay, thank you, universe, for keeping me here. I'm really appreciating it. I don't know why I'm appreciating it, but I don't need to know why right now. I just need to be in complete surrender, complete gratitude, complete love and trust for the universe, and become the observer. Okay. Because if I be fully present instead of not present because my mind is at home thinking of all the things I should be doing or I could be doing or what all that kind of crap, you're not where you are, you're somewhere else, and you're worrying or stressed because I'm stranded. Instead, it's a totally different dynamic. It's like, right, I'm exactly where I need to be. Thank you, universe. And maybe the benefit isn't for me. Maybe it's for somebody else. And maybe this is my gift to somebody else. Be present, fully enjoy the moment, and go completely and utterly with flow. And I tell you what, at some point in time, you will get feedback which will make you understand why the hell you're there. If you're fully present. If you're not, you may leave never knowing why you were stranded. And you'll just carry on that frustration. But what we have to do is realize there's higher forces at work. Everything happens for a reason. And it's only when you are truly grateful, truly present, and truly accepting of everything that is happening, exactly how it is, that we can really reap the benefit. And that's letting go whether you're benefiting or is somebody else. And that is how you get into flow. Don't resist the feedback from the universe. Don't resist how the universe is reconfiguring itself. Everything is. It's happening. We have to accept it. We can't change it. Don't worry about things we cannot influence or we cannot change. That is absolutely pointless, wasted energy. It's like being in a river and trying to stop the river. Just go with the flow. See where the river takes you. Yes, you might have to be mindful on that journey and go, when the river forks, intuitively figure out which fork you need to go down. And again, all of it's just feedback, and this is what the testing does. In our lives, we come to forks in the river, and those are decisions that we've got to make. Do I do this or do I do that? Now, there's a metaphysical, multidimensional perspective that there is a version of us that does every decision in a fractal universe. You make this decision, there's a different version of you that made the other decision. There's a film like this called Sliding Doors. And at the end of the day, we have freedom of choice, free will. But that freedom of choice does not exonerate us from freedom of the consequences of our choices. And this is why we need to learn better ways of discernment in making those choices. Because the choices shape our lives. And if the shape of our lives isn't quite the way we would like it to be, then what we need to do is learn different ways of making choices. And the only way we can do that is being fully present with how we make choices and the language we use and the feelings and the sentiment that is attached to them. So like in this set of circumstances, this feeling of being stranded, of not wanting to be there, is not placed in gratitude and gratefulness for being exactly where you need to be. And saying, okay, universe, I'm here and I'm going to make the best of it. I'm open to understand the reason, whatever that might be. It's not necessarily trusting yourself. It's trusting the higher forces, trusting the universe, trusting that whatever's happening, it's just feedback. The feedback is there for your benefit. And that benefit might be that, in hindsight, you should have made a decision earlier. And the way we apply that knowledge is when we have the intuitive thoughts in the future, we take action more immediately than procrastinating. This is all about being present, about making change. But you have to be self-aware. And you have to just let go of control. Control is an illusion. If you've ever at any point in your life said, oh, we were meant to meet. Oh, it just feels like I was destined to be here right now. You know, some synchronistic happening happened. Well, that means every decision that you made leading up to that point, you didn't make. It was the universe that made it. You thought you made it because your ego likes to take ownership. But if you believe in destiny in any way, shape, or form, that means you're not making any of the decisions. And if that's the case, then why are we getting attached? And why are we not present? And why are we anxious? Because things aren't going out the way we want, instead of accepting what is. Does that all make sense a bit more?
Yes, but then a practical way to do it, like, something more, something that I can see or read every day. Do you have like a book or some resource that I could tap into to be reminded of that, knowing that I've, in what you were saying, always been in, up until now, been in survival mode?
Good question. One book that comes up, even though I haven't actually read it per se, but I've I understand it, and I've kind of know snippets of it and heard bits about it and things like that, is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That's one of the intuitive things that, comes up for me. I understand his teachings very intimately and the premise of the book. For me, because of my dyslexia in the past and things like that, I have tended to not read. Audiobooks is usually what I like to listen to now. But in essence, I often listen to the author of the book talking about the premise of the book. And when you understand the premise, in essence, all the book is lots of ways of describing the premise, giving you analogies and ways of looking at it. But if you understand the premise, that you don't really need the book as such, to some degree. That is in many ways going to give you that understanding. Another book that comes up for me, if you like to understand the mechanisms, the science, the physics around, this phenomenon, is a book by Rupert Sheldrake called Morphic Resonance. And, that's a great book on the science of the metaphysics, is probably one of the ways that I like it. It talks about the morphic field, the morphogenic field. And this is this is spoken about in lots of scriptures and everything like that. It's mentioned in the Quran as such, in the Vedas and Buddhism, Sikhism, all sorts of stuff. It talks about this field of energy that permeates the entire universe and makes it one. This is what I lovingly call the internet, not the internet. The internet, we're talking over the internet now, and we're communicating, and these communications over the internet are going to plant seeds in you which will affect decisions you make. Now we have what we call the internet, which is this ethereal network of energetic connection between us. And in essence, this is where our subconscious, our souls, co-conspire to manifest each other. So like in a relationship, you will attract the type of relationship which is what you expect. And this is all done on an ethereal, plane, where you will subconsciously make decisions, and there's higher forces at work, which will coalesce into you meeting. And this is where we call it synchronistic. Oh, it feels like we were meant to meet. Well, you did realize subconsciously at a soul level, you were communicating and you orchestrated that meeting. If you believe in soul contracts, it might be that before you were incarnated, you made an agreement that at this point in time in your life, you were going to meet to get together to have an experience which would change your life forever. That's what a soulmate is. A lot of people think their soulmate is somebody that they're going to meet and fall in love with and be with forever. No, that's not the case. That's a life partner, not a soulmate. A soulmate usually comes to fuck things up and trigger you, challenge you, and cause turbulence, which basically will either help you grow and evolve or regress into fear. And the difference is all about choice, and is all about presence. It's all about gratitude. Whether you default into appreciating and being grateful for the experience, no matter how emotionally turbulent it was, and how loss you feel, and how much regret you have, all of this kind of stuff is just feedback. All of this is, in essence, training your emotional muscles to be present with what you're attracting in your vibration, so you can change it and modify it so you don't attract it again. So the trust isn't for yourself, the trust is for the higher forces at work. Becoming the observer, the power of now, being present, right here, right now, regardless of what's going on in my environment. Everything is perfect and wonderful. I'm happy to be alive. I'm alive, I'm healthy. There's nothing else I need. Everything comes and goes. Everything waxes and wanes. And regardless of what's coming and going, I can be fully present and grateful for all of it. And know there's a blessing. This is the part in the Bible, it says, seek and you will find. And that, in essence, is the confirmation bias our minds have. Whatever you look for, you see evidence of, even if the evidence doesn't actually exist. When I was talking to one of my clients last night, and I'm kind of guiding him through a turbulent kind of soul connection with this other woman, and they've both got conflicts which are triggering each other, and they've kind of come apart slightly, and he's trying to rescue the relationship, and he messaged her, and basically the message didn't go through. So he texts me going, oh, I sent a reply, but it looks like I'm blocked. And obviously he was kind of emotional at the thought that he got blocked because this is what's happened to him in the past with women. Yeah, they have intense relationships, and, some people can't deal with the intensity, so they run away. And this is kind of the behavior that I've been helping him with. The bits that he doesn't realize is his passionate way of showing love is sometimes too much for people. But he, does very big declarations of love. Like, somebody doesn't want to talk to him and blocks him, he'll jump on a plane and fucking fly to them and knock on the door. And in some ways that's scary for people. But for him, that's, look at how much I love you and how much I'm willing to do. This is how much I care. Sometimes it comes across badly in communication. Right? So he got triggered by the fact that he thought she'd blocked him again. And then 5 minutes later, he was like, the message has just landed. Maybe she didn't have signal or something like that. And I'm like, well, see how we can project our fears onto the situation when actually the situation was a figment of our imagination, because we thought we saw evidence of a pattern which didn't exist. And the problem is that when we see false evidence, which is what fear, false evidence appearing real, FEAR, false evidence appearing real, and what we do is it triggers us, and then it creates a response and a reaction, an action that usually exacerbates the situation and actually creates the thing that we were fearing. And that's us manifesting it. Does that all make sense?
Yep. Thank you for the book.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I would say a little affirmation which you can work into your daily practice is just words like, I am present, I am here, I trust the universe, I trust the higher forces, the universe is conspiring for my benefit, and everything is perfect in this moment. And that's regardless of what's happening. Do not judge. Just like that analogy. He immediately judged when his message basically didn't go through. Oh, I've been blocked. He then experienced the trauma and the emotions and the upset of the feeling of being blocked by this person. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, it eventually landed. And maybe they were driving and just didn't have signal for a few minutes. So they traumatized themselves for something that actually didn't happen, but they thought it had. Remember, our minds does not know the difference between something is real and something is imagined. This is what horror movies play off. Yeah, what they're called mirror neurons, your sympathetic nervous system. Yeah, when you see someone fall over of a crash, you jump. Because you're imagining you in that position and your body's reacting as if it would if it was in that position. These are just mechanisms of the psychology and the physiology of how we operate. And once we know this, we can then start to take control of it and then start to leverage it for our benefit. And that's what the creative visualization is leveraging it for our benefit. The problem with creative visualization, you're either doing it proactively or you're doing it passively. Proactively is when I choose, like I did last night, for a couple of hours, was to envisage, there's a couple of projects. So I was envisaging my investors, buying my NFTs. I was visualizing my team, working on launching and building the community. I was visualizing the app and the virtual psychologist and people engaging with it and building the database. I was imagining millions of people, using the technology, thinking it's absolutely amazing and getting huge benefits. I was imagining the cash flow going through the business. This kind of technology's got the potential of tens, 20s of millions a month in revenue with incredibly high profit margins. I was imagining then what I could do with that money to invest in other projects or buying land and creating retreat centers. I was imagining all the joy and the healing that, all the participants are appreciating and experiencing. I was imagining me traveling and the change of lifestyle that it would bring. And feeling that joy and that gratitude and that amazement and that beauty. And then that was giving me inspiration. I would say, oh, actually, yeah, that needs to be done. I haven't thought about that yet. Because the mind is backwards engineering and figuring out how the hell I'm going to do this. I'm leveraging my subconscious mind, that higher processing rate. These are tools at our disposal. The problem is worry, fear, anxiety is all creative visualization of shit we don't want. And we're all guilty of that. There's no one that is exempt from that. The challenge is catching it in real time and changing it before you manifest it. Because everything is magic. We're saying a prayer, we're casting a spell with every thought we have. And what you manifest is, in essence, the average sum of all of this magic that we're doing. So if we're 40% positive and 60% negative, we're going kind of 10% backwards. You know, it's like the tug of war. Whichever side has the most energy is the one that's going to be dominant and win. So you've got to be fully mindful, fully present, fully observant. And whenever you are thinking a destructive thought, which is counter to actually what it is that you want, you need to catch it immediately and transmute it into the positive version. Instead of thinking you're stranded, thinking, thank you, universe, for blessing with me with being here for longer. Instead of, you know, oh God, I've got to go to bloody church and deal with all that bloody ceremonial bullshit. It's like, wow, I've got a beautiful opportunity to be present with my family and let them enjoy my presence. Life is about how we view it, how we look at it. You know, it was Wayne Dyer that said, when we change the way we look at things, the things that we look at change. So this is the preparation that I would be doing if I were you over the next coming days, and making decisions based upon the feedback and the inspiration that you get as to what you are going to do, because it's all about action. The last 6 letters of the law of attraction is action. The only way we can leverage the law of attraction is by taking action. We've got to act upon our inspiration. The world's a stage. We're all acting. That's why there's no mistakes. We get take 1, we get take 2, take 3, take 4. We've got as many takes as we want on the stage of life. And what we've got to do is, you know, it's like Jim Carrey was talking about. You know, he took the role of Jim Carrey and he adopted a persona and acted a certain way, which created a certain level of success for him. And he was a very big proponent in creative visualization. You know, one of the things that he used to do was go into Hollywood, you know, and park up in his old banged out, clapped out car, you know, amidst all the multi-millionaire houses. And he wrote himself a check for $15 million, I think it was. I think it was Dumber and Dumber where it was his first major breakthrough, and he got paid $15 million. And he said he just has this insane belief on his ability to manifest. And that's why he manifests. But he put a lot of work in visualizing what man can conceive and believe he can achieve. Or as Einstein put it, you know, imagination is a preview to life's coming attractions. Imagination is a preview to life's coming attractions. And this is all the pineal gland work. You know, you've got to look at how we manifest through the chakras. So the first fundamental part is divine inspiration. Yeah, the crown chakra, divine inspiration, inspire, to be breathed on by God, or to be in spirit. That's where inspiration comes from. You inspire, you bring in, like you breathe. The inspiration, the divine idea comes in through the crown chakra. And then it descends to the third eye, your 6th chakra, where we see it in our mind's eye. And then it descends to the throat chakra, the first physical expression, which is where we speak about it. We speak it into existence. Abracadabra, I create what I speak. Then it descends into our heart chakra. We grow love and passion. Then it descends into our 3rd chakra, where we grow confidence and courage to pursue it. Then it descends into our second chakra, the flow of life, where we get into flow. We go on our gut. We follow inspiration. We follow our intuition. We get into flow and everything just starts happening. And then it descends into our root chakra, where it's grounded in reality. But a key point in the journey is the visualization. What is it that you are envisaging for your future? And if you're stuck in fear mode and stuck in victim mode, everything's happening to me, not everything's happening for me, just one word in that sentence changes the whole dynamics. Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? For me is a benefit. To me is I'm a victim. And it's adopting that pronoia. The universe is conspiring for my benefit, no matter what it looks like on surface level. We can all just drown in our own pity party, especially when something exits our lives which we were really enjoying, really attached to. I mean, kind of, if we're honest with ourselves, often deep down we know it's the right thing. But because of this fear of missing out, or fear of loss, or fear of not getting anything better, we grow attachment. And in Buddhism, attachment is the source of all pain. So if you had an attachment to being at home instead of being, stranded where you are, then that will cause discomfort and frustration. And that's just not being fully present. But if we adopt the pronoia that the universe is conspiring for my benefit, so as the reason why, I didn't get this flight and I'm not home yet, you can be fully present and enjoy the moment. The power of now. And that is, in a nutshell, the foundation of manifestation. It's all about your frequency. It's all about your vibration. It's all about your intention. And it's all about your conviction and belief that you can achieve it. And all of that is predicated on how much resistance you have to getting it. And the only way to understand your resistance is by being fully present, being mindful of the language, being mindful of how you are viewing it, how you feel about it, and then taking steps to modify that if it's not in full alignment with the ultimate goal. And that might be doing work yourself, going through old surgeries in the training, going through affirmations, working, with some type of therapist, energy worker, spiritualist, whatever you want to call it. Could be could be me, could be, a whole host of people. Sometimes we need outside influences and mentors and everything like that to help us, guide us, and give us information that we didn't have up until that moment in time, or facilitate a process that they've perfected which helps us shift our level of consciousness and increase our vibration. And when we do that, the universe reconfigures itself. In essence, this can be seen as what we call Pauli exclusion principle if we were looking in science and physics. Pauli's exclusion principle dictates that no one electron in the entire universe can occupy the same energetic state. A very rudimentary way of describing it. Which means when you change the energetic kind of signature of one electron, every electron in the entire universe has to change immediately, instantaneously, to maintain equilibrium. The interesting thing is every thought that you have changes the state of trillions of electrons. So therefore, every thought you have changes the energetic state of the entire universe. A principle that we know and understand, called Pauli's exclusion principle. You've got then quantum entanglement, which is a very similar essence. So every thought you have reconfigures the entire universe. So be careful what thoughts you have, because that is what you're putting out there. That's the magical spell. Doing magic isn't about setting up an altar, getting some dirt and herbs and all this kind of stuff. That is a way of doing it. That is a mechanism. Humans love ritual because ritual, in essence, reinforces the sentiment. And the stronger you can reinforce the sentiment and the intention, the stronger the magic. But they're all trinkets. It's all completely unnecessary. Because if you truly embody the essence of the magic, you're doing it anyway. It is your mind that collapses the wave function. This is another premise in quantum physics. The first and complete and utter premise of quantum physics is nothing is unaffected by the observer. Nothing is unaffected by the observer. In other words, the observer affects everything. And this is the particle wave duality. The fact that we observe light changes the behavior of light. This is the things that reinforce the holographic universe theory. Everything is just light, and we morph the behavior of light by awareness of it and our expectations. Nothing is unaffected by the observer. And these are the mechanisms for magic. So what we have to be 100% and fully present with is what we are putting out into the universe. Are we saying to the universe, I'm a victim of my circumstances? Or are we putting out into the universe, I am utterly grateful for all of these circumstances because there is a beautiful benefit hidden there somewhere. And if I'm present, I know I'll find it. And letting go of that need to control. Being completely in touch with our inspiration so we can take inspired action. Remember, inspire, to be breathed on by God. Inspired action is when God speaks to us, or the universe speaks to us. You can put any label and any name. Could be Allah, could be God, could be Jesus. All of these labels, in essence, in all the different religions and all the different names, are just describing the same phenomenon. This higher force, this higher intelligence that permeates the universe and is above us. It's only ego that makes us think that we're in control. We have a modicum of control, and this is our free will. Every decision we make, we get an outcome. If the outcome isn't what we want, this is where making the different decisions come into play. And this is why I can't express enough about going through the testing process on a regular basis, even for mundane things which have no consequence. They're the best ones to do, because it's just feedback. It's like if you go to learn to play golf, you swing the club, you hit the ball, it has a certain feeling, you hold it a certain way, and the ball goes a certain direction. If it doesn't go the direction you want, what you do is you adjust your swing, you adjust your feet, you adjust the, angle of the club, and then it goes a different way. And you keep doing it over and over and over again until you get a feel of how you need to hold it and how you need to swing it to get it to go in the direction you want. And you build up the muscle memory and all of that kind of stuff. And that is what the testing's for. So get you to swing, get the feedback, and adjust your swing. But you can only do that if you're doing it as a mindfulness exercise. You are consciously aware of your decisions, the energy that you're putting into them, and the action that you're taking, and the outcomes that you're getting from it. And when you can be more fully appreciative of the feedback and the input that you did to get that feedback, you can then adjust the input, just like you adjust the angle of the club. And as you adjust the input, you'll get different outcomes. And eventually you'll find that, well, okay, when I do this, this happens. And that's what I want to happen. And that's amazing. So I'm going to carry on doing this. But again, it's an emotional muscle. You have to play with it. You have to practice. You have to experiment. And you have to be observant in the skills and the techniques and the processes that you use, to the point that you can understand it intuitively. That's when you don't need to do as much testing. Because for me, when I do the testing, when I do the muscle test and I get a certain stick, I get a certain feeling inside me. So when I can correlate the two, because the feeling inside me is my intuition, the stick is externalizing that intuition through a mechanism like the galvanic skin response. Basically, then that helps me, have this internal compass, this guide, this correlation between input and output. I then can start trusting that inner compass. But when I first started doing this, and I tested how accurate my internal compass was, and I kind of knew how accurate it was because I'd been self-sabotaging quite a bit up until that point, and that was the reason why I went down this route, to find more efficient tools. It was like 80% of the time, my intuition was off, and I was self-sabotaging because I was going from conditioned points of view, and only 20% of the time, my intuition was right. And then after a year or so of playing with it and doing this on a daily basis, multiple times a day, practicing it, and everything like that, I got it flipped to the other way around. Where it was 80% of the time, it was bang on and I was in flow and everything just went perfectly and beautifully. And only 20% of the time I was sabotaging myself, and I've improved it again since then. Doesn't mean it's perfect. It's not. Sometimes I ask the wrong question. Sometimes it's not I haven't asked the wrong question. Sometimes it's I just didn't think of the right question to ask. And that's fine. That's just all part of growing and learning. Mastery takes time. Ultimately, no master ever thinks they're a master, because they always know, no matter how much they know, there's a lot of things that they don't know. The more you know, the more you don't know. There's things that we know we don't know, and there's things that we don't know we don't know. And when you have that growth mindset, you will never think you know it all. You'll never rest on your laurels. Comprende?
Got it.
I guess that brings our number 48 of our masterminds to a conclusion. And you have enough to really reflect upon, and this time of year is all about reflection. When you first started this program, what did you want to achieve? What was your intention about how you were going to engage? What work you were going to put in? And now you can reflect back and go, well, did I do myself a service? Have I engaged at the level that I could have? Have I fully exploited this opportunity to the best of my advantage? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, great. Don't use it to beat yourself up. Use it as an opportunity to take 2023 to a whole new level by deciding, okay, I could have done a little better in these areas, so therefore what I'm going to do is make an intended effort to do better in these areas. And I guarantee everybody, no matter who you are, and no matter how much you've applied yourself, there'll be areas that you can do better. Me too. And that's ultimately how we improve.